The New York Islanders suffer a controversial 4-3 loss to the Dallas Stars in their return. We'll break down the controversy, talk about the hero and go to the game, and have the latest injury updates, all coming up next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. Great to have you with us to talk a little Islanders hockey. And, well, the good news is that the break for the Four Nations tournament is over. Islanders hockey returned on Sunday. And the bad news is that the Islanders suffered a controversial 4-3 loss to the Dallas Stars. And before we dig into the controversy, I want to just break down some of the game itself. It was a mixed bag. The Islanders dominated the third period, and I think they kind of should have expected that. Dallas was on the second end of a back-to-back, and they also only had 4 defensemen for a big chunk of that game because Leon Bichel was injured on one of the controversial hits by Casey Cizakas. And then Matt Dumba, who went to fight Cizakas after the hit that caused the penalty, he got 17 minutes in the penalty box. So for a long period of time, Dallas was playing with 4 defensemen, and they were on the second end of a back-to-back. The Islanders hadn't played, except for Brock Nelson, in roughly 2 weeks' time. And look, there were some good things to come out of this game. Anthony Duclair, let's start with that, scoring a goal. Boy, did he need that. Everydayers, you know we talked before the break and over the break about Duclair benefiting from 2 weeks off, that he was playing through some injuries, clearly was gutting things out for the team, and it was hurting his game. Well, the Duke got a goal. He had 4 shots on goal in the game. And while I'm not ready to say that Anthony Duclair is back to 100%, clearly there was a little more jump to his game Sunday rather than what we saw before the Four Nations break, and that is encouraging. Good to see Duclair tally. You know who else tallied a goal in this game? His first goal since November? How about Pierre Engvall? Was it pretty? No. But he went to the net, which is something that Patrick Waugh has been begging him practically to do almost all season, and he was rewarded for that. That was a good thing. And, you know, yeah, it kind of wasn't even intended to go the way, it wasn't a hard shot, or it wasn't aimed particularly carefully, but it went in. And Engvall, you know what? When you go to the net, good things can happen, and they certainly did. Got to give props to Tony DeAngelo for a great pass that set up Kyle Palmieri's goal. And we all know, everydayers, you know, Palmieri is a streaky player. He was hot early in the season, scoring a lot, went through a long drought, and now seems to be picking up a little bit more, and that is badly needed and very encouraging. So we had that. We had the first NHL assist in his career for Mark Gadcombe, so that was really good. He assisted on the Engvall goal. And, again, you see these positives coming up as the Islanders return from the Four Nations break. And I think the other positive was, even though the Islanders fell behind by a score of 4-2 in this game, they didn't quit. And the fact that they kept fighting through that third period, even after the controversial call, even after the goal was disallowed. And again, we'll get to that in our second segment. But this team kept coming and managed to get within a goal and really put a lot of pressure on the Dallas Stars in that third period. Just shot after shot after shot. And you could tell that the Stars were exhausted and on their heels. And it was encouraging, to say the least, to see the Islanders just keep on fighting. And, they ended the game with 37 shots on goal, but wasn't enough quite to win the hockey game. And let's face it, you're going up against a team that is more talented than the Islanders are. They're bigger, they're faster, they're more skilled. They've got Jake Ottinger, who is one of the better goalies in the league. And, despite the fact that they were on the road and on the back-to-back, they were able to win the hockey game. And it's not what the Islanders need because, again, you need points right now. The Islanders have now lost 3 in a row and 4 of their last 5. And they need to get back on track for sure. Again, when you look at this game, the power play, just a disappointment. You need more from the power play when you get the chances, and then giving up 2 power play goals in this game, both by Jason Robertson, who had a hat trick. The penalty kill, which had been better, all of a sudden just not there. And in the first 2 periods, the Islanders looked rusty. You had guys coming back into the lineup on defense in particular. You had Ryan Pollock back in the lineup, Scott Mayfield back in the lineup. Good to see those 2 guys back. Dennis Cholowski cleared waivers. He isn't on the team right now anymore. So Adam Boqvist, Hudson Fasching, and Matt Martin were the scratches in this game. Mayfield only played 10 minutes and 36 seconds. So they were being a lot more cautious with Scott Mayfield than they were with Ryan Pollock, but who played a little over 20 minutes. But realistically speaking, the Islanders getting 2 of their defensemen back, that was good news. And I think after the rust kind of came out, and I think that first period is where you saw a lot of the rust, where, they weren't picking up their men necessarily. I think Mayfield was beaten on one of the goals, the first goal by Sam Steele. After the first period, I think the rust was off. The team was back to, giving a full effort. And unfortunately, it just was not enough to get the win. As for Hero and Goat, well, before we get to Hero and Go to the game, not going to blame Ilya Sorokin for any of these goals. None of them were softies in that sense. So even though he gave up 4 goals, I am not going to say he was a big part of the problem. Hero and Go to the game. The GOAT of the game, I can go with the officials if I want to be kind of nitpicky and get on that bandwagon, but I'm going to go with the penalty kill because good call or bad call, okay? If the penalty is called and you got a break because there was an instigator penalty given the other way, you get a break, you got to kill those penalties. Whether they're a good call or not, you've got to kill that 3-minute power play. and the Islanders instead let in 2 goals. So that is the GOAT of the game. And you know what? For the hero of the game, I'm going to go with Kyle Palmieri. His goal was pretty. He was falling down, went to the toy department, went top shelf. He had 5 shots on goal, almost played 20 minutes. There were a number of guys who I could, possibly say were worthy 6 hits for Mark Gatcom and his first career NHL assist. I mentioned the goals for Duclair and Engvall, 2 guys who kind of needed to pick things up. But overall, I'm going to give it to Palms for that big goal. And hopefully he can get hot and help this team, put some more pucks in the net, which they desperately need to do. And, before we leave it, the power play. They had a power play chance in the 3rd period down a goal, and nobody wanted to shoot. Everydayers, how many times we've talked about the fact that this team needs to shoot the puck more frequently. Well, the Islanders, they just didn't do it. And here we are back from 4 nations. It is the perfect time to end old habits and start new ones and better ones, and they just didn't do it. And, you quote the great one, Wayne Gretzky, you don't score on 100% of the shots you don't take. Well, the Islanders had that power play with a chance to tie the game with about 4 or 5 minutes left in regulation. They didn't get shots on goal. They passed around the perimeter, but they didn't shoot. They didn't go for it. They didn't have guys in front of the net screening them. The power play has to come through in these circumstances, and it just didn't get it done all year long. Special teams have been a huge, huge problem for the New York Islanders, and that continued in this game against Dallas, and it cost them. All right, we have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We are going to talk about the 2 controversial plays, the match penalty to Casey Cizakas, and the goal that was disallowed for goaltender interference. We've got that, plus for our Islanders birthday of the day, a player who was with the Islanders in the mid to late 2000 teens, a forward from Belleville, Ontario. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you feel fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. So, get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit WonderfulPistachios.com to learn more. That's WonderfulPistachios.com to learn more. Two controversial plays, both very costly to the New York Islanders. And people who watch this show regularly, my everydayers, I don't like to blame the officials for wins and losses. Can they make the wrong call? Yes. Were there 2 controversial calls here? Yes. But again, good teams overcome these things. Bad teams use them as an excuse. So let's go back to the match penalty against Casey Cizakas. I will start off by saying this, and you could check out Locked On NHL because I host the Monday edition of Locked On NHL, and I had Joey Erickson, who is the host of Locked On Stars, on afterwards. And I think he did a good job of understanding the rule and how it works. So Leon Bichel of Dallas is going after the puck in the Dallas zone. He's a defenseman. In on the forecheck is Casey Cizakas. Cizakas goes in and makes contact with Bichel. Under no circumstances, and Joey Erickson said the same thing. He didn't think there was any intent by Casey Cizakas to go headhunting. He was trying to line up Bichel for a clean hit on the forecheck, but ended up making contact with the shoulder and the chin. And the way the rule is written, and I don't like all aspects of the rule, but the way the rule is written, it doesn't matter whether you intend to make contact with the head or not, or whether the head was the primary area of contact or the first area of contact. It matters that it was contacted. And look, I've looked at this replay from a few different angles, and it's tough to tell. And I got the feeling that whatever the call was on the ice, they reviewed it, and they came to the conclusion that Cizakas gets the match penalty. Would I have called a penalty on the play? Yes. Would it have been a 5-minute major and a match penalty? That's a lot tougher. Again, nobody is accusing Casey Cizakas of even attempting a dirty play. There was no intent to injure, but was there contact in and around the shoulder, the jaw, the head? Yeah, I think there was. And just the way the rule works, the rule is designed to be overly protective of players. And based on what we know about concussions and their cumulative effect on these players later on in life especially, I understand why the league is trying to protect players. I would have leaned more toward a minor, maybe a double minor, but again, the officials made the call for the 5-minute major, the match penalty. He was gone, Cizakas, for the duration of the game, and the Islanders ended up having to kill off a major penalty. Now, another rule that I don't like, Matt Dumba of Dallas comes in, and, he drops the gloves with Cizakas, mainly because he's sticking up for Bichel. And again, you want the players to be able to police themselves. Dumba gets an instigator, 5 for fighting in a 10-minute misconduct. So that at least cut the Islanders' power penalty kill down from a 5-minute major to 3 minutes. And they still couldn't take advantage of that. So here's the kind of secondary thing. Anytime there is a match penalty, it is referred immediately to the NHL Department of Player Safety. Will Casey Cizakas face further discipline as a result of this hit? And when I say further discipline, it could be a fine, it could be a suspension. Now, Cizakas is not a repeat offender. He is not the kind of guy who has a reputation as a dirty player. But, the NHL, not the most consistent league when it comes to handing out penalties and suspensions. And I am hoping, it was a borderline call on the match penalty. I'm hoping they will not suspend Casey Cizakas as a result of this incident. And follow me on X, and I'll keep you updated as soon as the league makes any announcement as to whether there's a hearing, whether it's in person, whether it's online, whether there's a fine or a suspension. We will keep you updated. The second piece of controversy, and this one I think was even more questionable. The Islanders scored a goal in J.G. Pageau, puts the puck in the net late in the game. And the goal was immediately waved off by the referees for goaltender interference. They review it on replay. They do not change the call. And Patrick Waugh and the Islanders coaching staff and the guys up in the press box, they reviewed it, and the Islanders did not challenge. Now, it's a tough call because what we saw on the replay was that the player who actually interfered with Jake Ottinger was the Stars defenseman, but was he, you had an Islanders player with a skate in the crease. Did the Islanders player push the defender into Ottinger? These are all judgment calls by the official. And unfortunately, from an Islanders perspective, those judgment calls went the wrong way. So the New York Islanders end up falling in this game 4-3. Plenty of controversy. You can question both of those calls. And I think they were both kind of borderline. But regardless of what the calls are, you got to overcome. You got to kill the penalty. You got to regroup after the goal is waved off. You got to take advantage of that subsequent power play. All of these things good teams do, and bad teams use the bad calls as an excuse. And the Islanders need to prove that they are a good enough team to overcome these kind of calls. I didn't like the calls, but I understand that you're not always going to get the calls, and you need to be better to overcome them. All right, more to get to on today's show. We've got some injury updates. Guys are returning to skating. We're going to talk about that. We're going to have our Islanders birthday of the day. We've got all this and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you could place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you could stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you could even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet $150 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from our hosts, Steele and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, some injury updates from over the weekend. And these are big. Noah Dobson actually practiced Saturday for the first time since he suffered his lower body injury on January 20th. Now, Dauber is on LTIR. He missed 9 games before the break, and last night's game against Dallas was the 10th game. So he is now eligible to return. Patrick Waugh said Saturday, we'll see how it goes, how he feels. For all the guys that have been hurt, they're all progressing well, which is good for us. We'll see. Tuesday, Islanders, Rangers. If Dobson is ready, it certainly would benefit the Islanders to get him back. But again, it's sort of one step at a time. You know you have Mayfield back. You have Pulock back. Now your defense core is starting to get healthy. As we mentioned, Chalowski now down in Bridgeport. Boqvist is the extra defenseman. And now it's still D'Angelo and Perunovic in the lineup with Mayfield, Pelech, Polak, Romanov. Those are your six. Now, we'll see whether or not Noah Dobson is ready to come back Tuesday. And again, we'll keep you updated via social media on all of that. But another Islanders defenseman also returned to practice for the very first time. Mike Riley was out there with the team. Now, there is still no timetable for his return, but he participated in the morning skate Sunday with his teammates. And Patrick Waugh, it was very inspiring to see Riley out there. From the moment that he got hurt in Buffalo to today, he's gone through a lot, and it's nice to see that he wants to continue and he wants to come back. I mean, a lot of us probably, if we had a heart problem, would think otherwise, but it's the beauty of our sport. These guys love the game, they're passionate about the game, and it's nice to see that. Brock Nelson telling the Hockey News it's been such a tough year for him in terms of hockey, but bigger picture, I think he's feeling healthy and good, and that's the most important thing. I've talked about a little bit how it was kind of a blessing in disguise that the defect was found and taken care of, and to get him back is great. So again, we are not sure when he'll be back, but it certainly was encouraging to see Mike Riley out there participating in the morning skate Sunday and being a part of it. And he earlier had said, and everydayers may remember, he wants to be back before the season is over. Whether it's going to happen or not remains to be seen. Whether there's a place for him in the lineup if he does remains to be seen. But we're taking steps in the right direction, and that is encouraging. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day, and Tuesday will be the 32nd birthday of former Islanders forward Alan Quine, the Belleville, Ontario native, 6 foot, 205 pounds, redrafted by the Islanders in the 6th round in 2013. He was originally drafted in the 3rd round by Detroit in 2011, but never signed with them. Made his NHL debut with the Islanders in 2015-2016, was a full-time NHLer for one season with the Islanders in 2016-2017, played 21 games the following year with the Islanders, then played 22 games over 2 seasons with the Flames. He is now playing in Sweden, hasn't played in the NHL since 2019-2020, has 10 career NHL goals, 28 points in 106 games, add a goal and 5 assists, so 6 points in 13 playoff games. 10 of those games with the Islanders, and all but 1 assist came with the Islanders. We go back and look at one of Alan Quine's better games with the Isles, October 23rd, 2016. Islanders hosting the Minnesota Wild at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And, the Islanders up 3-2 after 2 periods when our Islanders' birthday of the day, Alan Quine gets his first goal of the year. Anthony Beauvillier, the only assist. Thomas Hickey scores a little more than 2 minutes later to extend the Islanders' lead. And the Islanders go on to win this game by a 6-3 margin. For Alan Quine, he had a goal. He was a +3 in this game, and it was the game winner, despite the fact that he had 2 shots in just 8 minutes and 58 seconds of ice time. So Alan Quine is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. We have a special crossover episode with John Chick of Locked On Rangers to preview Tuesday's big game, Islanders-Rangers. So make sure you join us for that. Until then, don't forget, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.